ZombieTech. Welcome to ZombieTech, a forum for engineers, scientists, and inventors to ponder on the technologies needed to survive the inevitable zombie apocalypse.
She's Eddie.
He's Whisker.
And who do we have this week?
This week we have, like, a genius, right? I mean, I know last week we had a genius, but this week we have a true zombie tech genius. We have Jeff Merrick, a designer at Dojo, and we'll get into what that is later, who created the map of the dead, which was like all over the news and totally viral in, I think it was April earlier this year. And we'll also go into the map of the dead, which is just freaking awesome. Look it up right now if you haven't already seen it. Go explore, go figure out how to survive. It's excellent. Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Excellent. So, your company, Dojo, tell me, what is it? What is it about?
Mainly we make websites would be the main thing. We do a lot of different design work as well. So, packaging, anything that needs to be designed, and when it comes to websites, building the whole deal, the back end, the front end, everything that makes websites work.
Okay. And do you guys do the maintenance as well, or is it just kind of
in a lot of cases we stick with the client for a while and maintain the website, do additional work on it, testing, lots of different things.
Sure. And then what's your particular role in Dojo?
All of us there sort of wear a lot of different hats. I mainly do design related things. So that can mean a lot of things, but I also dabble a little bit in code. So
okay.
Not really complicated stuff, but the front end of the site needs to be coded. I can do that.
Sure.
Design and some code.
Sure. And I'm trying to think. These days, is it mostly what, Java and CSS and some HTML5?
Yeah, I mean,
is that what we're talking?
It's transitioning to HTML5 now. It's the HTML5. It's JavaScript, and of course, there's the different backend languages that we use. Ruby, PHP, all those kind of things.
Sure.
I went through the process of updating ours last year to HTML5, the new CSS, and the new JavaScript. That was fun having to relearn all that stuff again.
Well, and I think I've tried to learn some stuff too, but then as soon as I realized that I need to learn JavaScript and CSS, and I'm a complete noob when it comes to coding, I was like, well, screw this. my page is pretty much going to look like it's from the good old 90s.
Being a proper programmer, I don't really like to work with JavaScript in general, but it's fairly easy to come back to it every so often and see all the changes that they've made since the last time you got stuck using it. So I respect anybody who can put up with JavaScript on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
But it's definitely not for me.
Yep. So what are some of the coolest projects you've seen come out of Dojo, besides, of course, your own, because we'll talk about that.
I know we've done a lot of cool things. They can range from iPhone apps. We have a great iPhone app developer.
Okay.
To news sites for 20 local news TV stations. So it really can be quite a range, and that's what makes it interesting. There's a lot of different things, to work on.
Sure. Now, are there any ideal clients? Yeah.
There's always the ideal clients are the ones who trust you to trust your expertise. So
sure.
They realize that they hired you for a reason, and that's that you've made a lot of websites, so they trust your feedback, and ideally we really like to work with our clients as a team. So the best clients are the ones where you can collaborate with them. They're part of the team, and you work together and you make something awesome.
Sure. I just remember because Whisker and I used to be developers, and I think that's you guys. You pretty much hit it on the nail in terms of the best client is to work with one who actually just lets you do pretty much
Lets you do your
what
job
you
and
do.
doesn't try to make you reinvent the wheel every single time you got to do anything. Yeah.
We've had some interesting clients before, but okay. So, well, this is ZombieTech, and you came with what I think might be one of the most important resources for the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, this resource is probably a lot more valuable than being able to do web design. I don't know how being able to do web design would really apply in a zombie apocalypse, but this sort of proves that the skills that go into that can be useful for creating resources. Definitely useful resources.
Yes. So this is called, again, Map of the Dead. Mapofthedead.com, I believe, is where you can find it.
There'll be a link in the description as well.
Yes. Now, how did you come up with the idea?
I think that I'm always sort of thinking about data and what I can do with it, but I think that what it might have set it off was I think I was watching The Walking Dead and seeing where there's a scene where they're looking for stuff in a pharmacy, and I think I thought, well, they knew where the pharmacy was, but how would I know what was around me?
Mm-hmm.
Go, to go loot, I guess, for stuff after it happens.
Sure.
And I guess I made the connection. You type in Google Maps, you type whatever you want near a zip code, and it'll show you those things near. And I said, well, there's got to be a way to make this work. So I think that's where the idea came from.
Sure. And then, how did you actually do it?
So I'm not a JavaScript expert, and I'm sure that any JavaScript expert who looks at my source code will probably cry. But mainly what I just started looking through the Google Maps API documentation and looking for what I needed. And I just looked through that and kept poking at it until I got it working.
Okay, for the listeners out there who aren't coders,
Like me.
an API is sort of, well, you're a bit of a programmer now, more at the hardware level, but still a coder. An API is sort of an application, programmer's interface. It allows you to write your software and communicate with a piece of software that's already written without you needing to have the source code for it or change it. Sort of a way for applications to talk to one another, and it's become a really popular way for applications to talk to each other over the internet. Google can create their map system, which has access to tons and tons of data, and they don't have to open it up directly to you, the source code wise or the data.
Mm-hmm.
They can give you this definition of an API that allows your software to ask it politely for things, and it will give you the answer back. So what Jeff is saying that he did is he wrote a small program that interfaces maybe in a kludgy manner because he's not a JavaScript expert. There's lots of elegant ways to do it, but, it's JavaScript. I approach it the same way Jeff does. I show up, I copy paste this, it doesn't work, I change a thing or two. At the end of the day, it works, and that's kind of okay because it's JavaScript.
It's JavaScript.
Yeah. As long as you please the API of whatever you're talking to, and as long as you parse the information that it sends back and get it to do what you want it to, you've achieved your goal, and that's what really matters.
Got it. Interesting. Now, were there any particular countries that you had difficulty getting information on, or like any roadblocks that you had to figure out before the whole map came together?
Well, in terms of the data, essentially, since I'm just there's actually two APIs that I'm working with. One is the Google Maps API, which actually displays the map and styles it, and the other is the Google Places API, which actually finds the places. So what I found is that working with the Places APIs, they essentially have predefined categories that their places fit into. So I was able for the majority of the places on the map was able to use their predefined categories for those.
Mm-hmm.
However, there were a few that just they didn't have categories for, and for example, military bases was one. There was just no category for it. But luckily, via the API, you can also do a keyword search, meaning you send over a query, and if something matches in, if you search Google, the places come up, and there's comments, there's a description, there's reviews. If a keyword matches there, they'll return the place to you.
Sure.
Think like the gun stores, the military bases, pawn shops, the warehouses, the outdoor sports stores. Those didn't actually have categories, so I do it via a keyword query over to Google. It does result in, your local daycare center may be labeled as a military base for some reason or another.
It's a prison, Mom, Dad, get me out of here.
Right. So, like, for example, I'm looking at Chicago right now, and I think one of our congresswomen, her office is labeled as a military base. So it doesn't bring back the greatest data, but, it's better than nothing. I mean, there's also, the Marine Corps or something popping up there as well.
Yeah, we've all experienced a little bit of this in this modern data age where you type in one thing and you get something that you never would have thought was related, but evidently, yeah. Safe search during images is very important.
Right.
Gotcha. And I think I was reading through some of the comments, and they were mentioning that I think the only places that didn't have resources were Antarctica and North Korea.
Have you ever looked at North Korea on Google Maps?
Kind of scary.
Have you ever?
No.
It is absolutely fascinating. You get to the South Korean border, and you've got all the roads, you've got everything marked out nicely. As soon as you cross that border, you've got one road, and that's it. The entire country is just blank.
How do they do that?
They won't give any information out. It's their prerogative.
Huh. So every country has had to give Google permission.
Google called North Korea and is like, yo, I'd like your map data. And North Korean's like, hang up. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is. Look at it sometime.
Interesting.
The DMZ is really cool to look at, too, because you can see all the fortifications and everything along it.
Sure. Now, were there any, like, when you looked at it after all the, after all your magic, dojo mojo, that's a good one. Sorry. Okay. Were there any, like, unusual spots because, of course, besides, of course, North Korea, that you, like, double took, that you just said that's kind of odd that this happened?
Yeah, there's some strangeness up in Alaska. There's this, that pink reddish coloring, which is the danger zones.
Yeah.
And that's essentially me asking the Google Maps to make all of the man-made structures pink.
Right.
Which is just something you can do.
Right.
So,
and there's definitely not man-made structures of that scale around there in some of those places anyway.
Right. If you look like it's like northern Canada, just to the east of Alaska there's these huge tracts of lands that are entirely pink. So unless there's some really big buildings there we don't know about.
To the east. Oh, like the little peninsula.
Yeah, it's just all pink, and that should.
Oh, that's creepy.
That really shouldn't be that way.
That's really creepy.
Yeah. So,
with that said, those areas can be dangerous. I would classify, wilderness in Alaska as probably a bad choice in the zombie apocalypse, unless the zombies freeze really easy. Then maybe.
You have zombie popsicles. Huh. Interesting. Very interesting. And I noticed on the US map, as soon as I open it, Minneapolis seems to be, strangely enough, really red. Like, red all over.
Well, if he's calculating it that way, it would seem that cities that were spread out rather than built up would have a perceived larger, pink area.
I see. And so for those and actually, why don't we have you tell us a little bit about the maps, like, look, in terms of what we have. I mean, I know it's super simple, but we might as well. We've got you on.
Sure. So, I mean, and essentially, Google provides a way for you to style the map, and you can basically go through and decide what colors you want different elements to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this case, uh, I what I really wanted to do from the beginning was to have do some sort of population density overlay, like heat maps to show actual population density, because a high population density would definitely indicate that a place is more dangerous.
Sure.
But when I was looking at how to get that working, uh, it was either impossible or beyond my skill level. So I found sort of a substitute for that, which is the danger zones you see, which is essentially where I'm making all of the man-made structures into that red color. And the roads are red. But I think that, I mean, generally it probably would work pretty well, because you'd find that parks aren't red, and if you go out into sort of less populated areas, it's going to be safer because there's going to be less zombies.
Yep. Huh.
Buildings equal people and people equal zombies. Yep.
Oh, is there any way to interface like a Wikipedia search, for population density?
You could. It would be quite a chore, however.
Okay. And then I think along the bottom here, we also have...
It'd probably be better to go with like U.S.
like a legend.
Census Bureau. I mean, for at least this country.
Yeah.
That would probably be an easier way to get the information, because they present it in a standard, queryable way.
Oh, I guess that's true.
And I've been looking at some other... one thing that we really want to do is be able to sell posters of different cities.
Oh, sure.
And obviously we can't sell Google Maps because it's their data.
Right.
So one thing I've been looking into is OpenStreetMap data, along with a program called interface called Mapbox and TileMill.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've actually been able to generate, although I haven't put it anywhere yet, is being able to get that population density and put a circle over the city that the size depends on the population density. So the data is out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of getting it on the map in a way that's actually useful.
Gotcha.
Now, doesn't Google have some sort of a way that you can pay for a bigger version of it or something that allows you to actually use Google Maps and Google Earth imagery in for commercial purposes type of works?
They could, but I know at least for the API access, you get a certain number of requests before they start charging you. You haven't been charged yet, because after it went viral, it's low enough that we're not at the level where we get charged. But I'm not sure about Google Maps. I know Google Earth has that, where you can pay for it and then you can use it for commercial work, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, I mean, it'd be easier just to use open data, where we wouldn't have to pay anything for it. Although it is sort of funny, right after it went viral, I did get an email from Google, because which is pretty funny in itself to get an email from Google. But apparently I had coded some things a little bit inefficiently, and I think right after it hit Reddit and it just took off, apparently it actually set off some light on a dashboard. They have someone watching their APIs to make sure no one's abusing them, and it had been coded. Basically what it does is it pulls their servers whenever or at least it did, whenever someone panned the map,
mm-hmm.
to put more places on the map. So they had some suggestions, and I made a few changes to make it a little less hard on their servers.
Well, that's nice. Dear Jeff, you've set off some alarms here at Google. Kindest regards, Google.
Yeah, that was essentially what the email was. So
is this spam? That's very cool. Huh. So I have a question for you personally. Based on this map, where do you think the safest place is to be? And do you think it would be better to be in a danger zone? To be closer to all of the items you need, or farther away from the danger zones?
that's sort of it's tough because I've noticed looking at some smaller cities that there's going to be fewer zombies, but there's a lot fewer places to find stuff. But I mean, we're in Chicago, and I'm pretty sure that we would be pretty screwed. So, but the one advantage we have here is the lake. So
Right. As
finding
long
a
as zombies can't swim.
right.
Right.
Well, apparently they can't swim. They can walk underwater though. Is what I
Right.
heard anyhow. So,
Right. I've heard that too.
I'm not buying that with a actual like reality biology based
Well, are we
zombie.
really biology?
We typically on this show we sort of stick to how physics really works because
Yeah, I
if we're going to
guess.
come up with a solution to a problem, the problem might as well be a real problem. So the human body needs oxygen to supply the ability to move the muscles. So if you can't get oxygen into the body, the zombie's not going to come after you. So underwater zombies doesn't really work.
I'm gonna have to see if zombies breathe in all the movies we watch. I don't think I remember them breathing. But there was that one movie where they did walk underwater,
Now,
and then
I
they
grew
came
up
up
on
the other side of the
the
channel.
shores of that same lake, on a different side of it, and I didn't ever send any zombies over to Chicago, so we can't really verify this.
unfortunately, there's no way to really test it at the moment.
Right, right. So then where would you go then? I mean, Chicago, home, I know, but really zombies. I mean, zombies home, zombies home.
Yeah, I would. I mean, even though there's lots of resources, I mean, maybe the best bet would be to head out of the city and try to pick up stuff as you go and try to get out into the wilderness somewhere because I mean anywhere where there's lots of people, there's going to be lots of zombies. So
Yeah, there's an interesting thing about that, though. A lot of guests have said that get out into the country, out to a big farm or something, because if there's no people around, there's no zombies around. But really, it only takes one zombie to kill you. Whether that zombie was of a large group of zombies or just a single one that was sitting in your woodshed on your farm doesn't really matter. It only really takes one.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
What do you mean? So you'd rather stay in the city?
You have to defend yourself just as much in the countryside as you would in the city, just because it only takes one. You have to have an impervious defense no matter which place you're in.
I suppose.
however, it is easier to defend yourself from one zombie than 1,000. So if you have, limited ammo, you're probably better off in a situation with fewer zombies, even though it does probably, it does only take one. So
Right. Is there any way to count how many buildings of each type there are from your
Uh,
map?
so I guess if you went into a certain area, I mean, when I pull the places API, it returns a certain number of results.
Mm-hmm.
However, how Google returns those is it it doesn't return everything. So it'll do it based on the radius you provide. So
Mm-hmm.
if you provide a larger radius, it's going to return not every single place in that radius because if you put them all on the map, it would be way too many places.
Right.
Um, but there probably could be a way to, within a certain radius, determine an approximation of how many different of each type of place there was.
Gotcha. Because I'm looking, it's very interesting because I'm looking at like the middle of Kansas or like southwest Kansas, I think. So on the zoomed out map, it's pretty
Yeah,
barren. But as
not
you
a whole
zoom
lot
in,
out there.
it looks like every, I don't know what the unit of measure is, but let's pretend like 10 miles. Every 10 miles or whatever, there's a man-made building. And so I'm wondering, is it like a cemetery that's every 10 miles or like just a rest area? Because rest area would be considered man-made, right?
Right, and
Right.
it's hard to say how they actually determine what is a man-made structure or where they get that data.
Sure.
But and like you saw in up near Alaska, it may not be man-made structures at all.
Yeah. I mean, that may be like a giant national park that just happens to be special, and it shows up as being something that. What island is that?
Baranoff?
Which city is on the inside of it there?
I don't know.
wish I was more familiar with Alaska. It's hard to find time in the day to get familiar, but I can see on
well, Juneau is pretty close to it.
On normal Google Maps, that whole area is colored differently than the rest of that area around it. So it's got to be special somehow.
Right, I haven't let you answer, actually. So where would you go? I'm going to ask the specialist here.
I don't know. I can't think of any specific place. I'd get out of the city somehow.
Yeah.
And it may be a matter of getting on the lake and trying to go up north and finding an island. I think an island might be a good idea.
Yeah, Mackinac would be nice.
Or just heading the other direction, just out of the city, because that just seems like bad news to me.
Sure. Huh. Let me ask something also. I mean, I'm sure you've looked at this map a lot, but South America, I see a lot of roads, don't necessarily see a lot of danger zones.
Mm-hmm.
Any idea why?
I think that just might be, I think that the danger zones seem to actually work best in North America and possibly in Europe. They seem to be working pretty well. But you'll even notice, like, if you go up near the U.S.-Canada border,
mm-hmm.
they change. It seems like the danger zones just go away. So I think it might just have something to do with.
Well, it's because Canadian zombies are so polite. They come up to you. They're like, "May I eat your brains?" And you're like, "No, I'd rather you didn't eat my brains." And they're like, "Oh,
right.
Okay, I'll go over here and ask someone else."
So I think it's just that international data being a little bit strange.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting.
It's always interesting to see how the way in which you look at data can reveal interesting things about how the data is being collected and how it's being presented. It's always fascinating to see the patterns under the patterns that only come out when you try to do something with it. I've always been fascinated by that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, I saw, I'm guessing because of the popularity, there's talk of developing a potential zombie apocalypse game.
Yep, that's actually something we're working on. So, and it's actually making really good progress.
Awesome. Now, is there any way we could get like a hint as to what that involves?
Yeah, definitely. We've been working on it for a while. Obviously, we're a company, so we have to put our client projects first. So
sure, yeah.
A little bit. I have to put it on the back burner for a little bit, but essentially, what it's going to be, and a lot of this is working already. We changed up our data sources a little bit for it, but it's going to be a map that shows a lot of the places that are on the Google map.
Mm-hmm.
We're using Foursquare for the data instead of Google, and we're also using Mapbox, which I mentioned earlier, to actually display the map. And the reason we're using Mapbox is you actually can't display a styled Google map on iOS. So that's the reason.
I see. Interesting.
But essentially, the idea here is, and if you go to our game page on mapofthedead.com, you'll see it. It's the zombie apocalypse has happened, and you've stumbled across a military grade device that is showing you all these places around you. So essentially, what you're gonna be able to do is you'll hit open the map. It'll show all the places within a certain radius around your real location. So if you're sitting at home, it'll show you all the relevant places around you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just tap one of those places, and you can go inside and look for supplies inside there. So if you're looking inside a pharmacy, you're going to find medical supplies, things like that. Different places, whatever would be relevant for that place.
Mm-hmm.
So the other component to it, of course, is that there's zombies around. So if you go into a place, there may be zombies there, or walking down the street, there may be zombies there as well. So you'll have to. We're working on sort of a turn-based combat with the zombies, where you use the items you've collected
Mm-hmm.
to fight them. So you may have found a baseball bat somewhere at a sports store, and so you would use that in turn-based combat to fight the zombies.
Quick question. Are you guys going to, so say you get hydrogen peroxide from a pharmacy, right? Are you guys going to allow that to be used as a weapon?
It's going to be preset items. So
Okay.
I have a huge spreadsheet, and we've been working on it for a while. Of essentially all the items and all their their damage, their different attributes. You can find clothing as well, but it's going to be preset items that you can find, and then they'll have preset uh, uh, damage or
Sure.
effects.
Sure. This is a very interesting thing because I can imagine if this game.
I can imagine some of the conversations that have gone around the round table with this thing as they're working on it. For example, the choice to make it be a game where you sit there and poke around on the map instead of a game where you use the location ability of the phone itself to a greater extent to actually say you could go to this place, like physically.
Wait.
Because your phone knows you went there, and that could, give you more items than if you would have just clicked around on the map. I'm sure these are the sorts of topics that have probably come up.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. So this is a game where you can sit there in your couch and click around, as opposed to actually going to a certain spot and checking in?
No, it'll be location based. So
okay.
You can sit on your couch, but it'll only be places within, say, a 100-meter radius of your couch
that you can access.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to really find good stuff, and there isn't, let's say, a gun store nearby or a sporting goods store nearby, you might have to take a little trip to go to that to get within the proper radius to be
Epic.
able to.
So the basic idea here is that people can do this while they're out and about doing their thing.
Yeah.
At a stoplight, whatever. Probably a bad idea, but yeah.
We here at ZombieTech do not condone the use of cell phones, especially for texting, because, man, y'all are bad drivers when that happens. Okay, so then, there's so many ideas. This could branch out. I mean, you could have limits to how much loot you could take back in a day, right?
Yep, that's part of it. Everyone has a backpack. So there's a limited number of items you can put in your backpack.
Sure.
Actually, I'm explaining a lot of the game here, but that's okay. I don't think we actually have said this anywhere else, so you guys are getting inside information. Woo-hoo. But the idea is that you have this backpack, and you also have your home base, which would probably typically be your apartment or your home. So you can stash stuff at your home, but when you go out during the day, you're going to want to either take a limited number of things or think about what you want to take with you during the day,
right?
From your stash, because you'll run out of space in your backpack if you go around and try to pick up everything.
Dude, that's brilliant. And then can people loot your house?
No, that's something that there's something sort of similar to that.
That would be fun. Drive around the neighborhood and steal everybody else's crap. Yeah.
And that's something we've been thinking about how to incorporate that. One way it's sort of incorporated is if you die, which isn't really death, you drop your backpack.
Okay.
If your health gets too low, you drop your backpack. So that's the equivalent of dying in the game. But when you drop your backpack, it stays where you dropped it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So your servers there had turned this into sort of a massively single player type of thing then.
Right. So your backpack's there, and someone else can actually run across your backpack and take stuff out of it.
There was a great functionality like that in NetHack. Did you ever play that back in the day?
No, I have not.
NetHack, don't. You will lose weeks of your life. It's this great little text-based adventure dungeon crawler thing from way, way, way back, and they keep adding more and more to it every single year. So I just stay as far away from it as I can because their tagline is "The developers have thought of everything," and that means like if you get a sword and you happen to be in front of a fountain and you dip the sword in the fountain, there's a chance that when you pull it out of the water, it will have become Excalibur. That kind of thing. They have thought of every
Or a
stupid thing.
snake
And this
that
is the kind
kills
of
you.
game where you type it in. You're like, dip sword in fountain, and it just parses that and actually does it. So it's very, very addictive. Stay away. People don't play this game. But there's this great thing in there where if you die, you leave a corpse. And years later, you could come back and you'd be in a similar area of the dungeon and you'll run across it and you'll find these remains here. And you'll start digging through the inventory and it'll seem strangely familiar. And you'll realize that, wait, I died here, years ago. And the game remembered. And my stuff is here. And there's a skeleton. And that's me.
And that's awkward.
So, yeah, this feature's very cool. And I always found it cool in that game. And it sounds like it'll work even better in this one. Because it's not just your stuff. It's everybody's stuff that's playing around you.
Can you attack other players?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment, he says.
So that's something where it's not a feature right now, but we've been thinking about how to possibly integrate it. We're more thinking about in terms of team play, maybe. We haven't worked this out completely, but more cooperative type team play
Sure.
where you have to. Maybe you have to get 3 people and all go to the same location and perform a special mission there to get an extra reward. So we're trying to think of ways to. It's mostly single player now. We're trying to think of ways to bring in more multiplayer actual gameplay.
Sure.
Because one of the things
I've got an idea for you if you want. This is free. Okay. So
Thanks,
free
Whisker.
idea. You could allow some people when they're not playing, or if they just choose to, they could flag themselves as zombies. And getting too close to people who have flagged themselves as zombies could trigger off these more random zombie events that aren't even in buildings.
And that would be pretty cool. One thing we have found in some other experiments we've done with sort of location-based apps is that it's somewhat difficult to do true, like the main problem is that the person's location, their GPS has to be on all the time. If we're going to be constantly tracking their location, which weirds people out in the first place anyhow.
Right.
It drains the battery a lot.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why we're sort of thinking it's sort of a pull out your phone and then decide you want to mess around with it, as opposed to us constantly checking their location to see if there's something around them. Because we don't want to drain people's
batteries.
But the general idea of someone being near you and being able to interact with them in some way would be pretty cool.
Huh. Interesting. Now,
allowing people to flag themselves as a zombie, like if they just have their phone on and the app is open, but they don't necessarily want to play, maybe they're just paused and that makes them a zombie, allows them to create more game space for those around them without actually having to physically know those people or interact with them. And it makes the whole world a little bit more dynamic, which might be fun. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about.
Well, okay. So you were saying when a person dies, they lose their backpack.
And they should definitely spawn off a corpse that's walking around the area, yeah.
Well, so that's what I'm wondering. Like, do you become a zombie then? Like, can you get zombie status?
I mean, it's your health has gotten to 0, so you we would explain in the game world as your health has gotten so low that you have to drop your backpack and run away. So you didn't actually die. And in our current concept, all of the zombies are they're computer zombies.
Okay.
So,
Oh man, I'm not gonna lie though. If there are human zombies, like people who could choose to be zombies, that might take the game to a whole new level.
yeah, it could.
Just saying, because those zombies, if you're a zombie, you're already somewhat sadistic. So you're gonna be checking your freaking phone, looking for the next human,
Looking for brains, yeah.
right? Being like, sucker. I'm gonna loot his backpack. Interesting. Very, very interesting.
The reason why I thought of it is because we know these people that get together, and a few hundred of them will get together, and they'll play Zomb, which is, you've got...
Nerf guns.
Basically, yeah, modified Nerf gun usually, because they really want to have good distance and accuracy. And these are geeks. They know how to get on a lathe and sort of make their own parts for their Nerf guns. But they'll get together, and a couple hundred of them will show up at a park at night, and they'll all have their Nerf guns, and then you'll start out with a couple of zombies, and if the zombie catches you, you're now a zombie. And then the smaller and smaller group of humans is fleeing from this growing and growing group of zombies, and it's pretty fun. But all these kids have cell phones. Can you imagine what it would do to your game world if, you had a Zom event and everybody decided after the thing, well, I was on the winning team, so I'm a human, and all the rest of us are zombies, so we're going to flag ourselves as zombies and then go back into the population for, the week until we meet again. And that would make for a very interesting digital gamescape for the week in that area.
Interesting. I don't know. I think you could, also a side note, I think you could probably get items that would contribute to the defense of your home. Like the defense.
I had a related question.
You said
that they had a life score or whatever, a health bar.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some built-in sort of decay on those things where you need resources to refill your hunger meter or something like that?
That was something we were thinking of. You would have to, like you said, it would constantly decrease by a very slow amount, and you would have to constantly check and find food and feed yourself. Otherwise, it would get to zero.
Mm-hmm.
I think we took that out for the moment. As we're going through making it, obviously we have to sort of weigh different features that we want and make compromises. But that would be sort of an interesting thing, especially to keep people, checking to make sure that that their health is okay.
Right.
But I don't know. That does make the game a little bit high maintenance because you do have to constantly check it to make sure you're alive, sort of like a virtual pet or something like that.
It's like in Minecraft.
A lot of games go for that so that people keep coming back to play them every day for at least a short period of time. It's usually a sort of aspect that's very easy to take care of, but you have to do it every so often.
It's kind of love-hate, though, because it depends on how fast the decay is, right? If it's, ridiculously slow, so, once a month you may starve to death, all right, that, people can handle that. But if it's, every day, forget it. That's the easiest way to kill the game. So
but then again, one of the most popular topics that comes up on this show of people that like to think about zombies and how to stay safe and how they're going to survive, one of the most frequent things that people talk about is being able to get fresh water, being able to get food, having available, resources like that to make sure that they don't, starve or die of thirst. It's something that people think about a lot when they think about zombies and survival.
And you were going to say something, Jeff?
It's always just going to say in a game, it's always a fine line between, making it fun and making it a chore. So,
right.
Like you said, you just have to find the right balance. So,
right.
And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to do a lot of testing with people at the office playing it and to make sure that we have that, have that balance right. And, adding in decaying health might be something that, needs to get added in for the balance. But it's hard to tell until, I wrote up tons of formulas for how the damage would be calculated. And once we started testing it, we had to make modifications because you just once you start actually sort of playing with it,
Mm-hmm.
you realize that it's too easy to get stuff or it's too hard to get stuff, and you just have to tweak it until it feels right.
And
Yeah, you
how
have
do
to find the
you
fun.
how do you get like health decay?
Well, they don't right now.
Right.
Wait, sorry, brain. No, you do.
Well,
Right?
through getting into fights with zombies.
I mean,
obviously.
I don't mean like the food decay or hunger decay. I mean like health decay. Like how do you end up getting to the point where you lose your backpack? Is it like if you walk into a gym, a barbell accidentally hits your foot and
it's
-5?
It's through the combat with the zombies.
Okay.
So when you're fighting them, it's it's turn based. So you deal damage to them, they deal damage to you, and if they deal enough damage, then your health eventually gets to 0.
Okay. And now, would you go for the gun store or would you go for like a samurai shop?
Well, a samurai sword is one of the items we put in there.
Epic.
And I can tell you that the attributes we gave the samurai sword are pretty awesome. So I would probably go for that. I mean,
a little bit of creator bias there.
Right. But also, we've also incorporated noise as an attribute for the weapons. Meaning, if you use a noisy weapon, it's going to attract more zombies.
Good job, you guys.
So it's important to be stealthy, and that's something that a katana. It's going to be sharp. It's going to do a lot of damage. Good for decapitation. But it's also relatively quiet compared to a chainsaw or a shotgun.
Right.
It's kind of a shame that phones aren't a little bit more standardized. They're getting pretty monopolistic at this point, but they're not completely you can't have a guaranteed feature set on these things yet. But the ones that have accelerometers in them, if you knew that all the phones had accelerometers and you had this samurai sword, you could have them hold their phone in their hand and just whack, and the harder they whack,
they
the
look
more
a little
damage.
silly in Starbucks doing it.
Seeing people do that in line at the bank, it would be great.
What are you doing? Oh, just killing zombies. Yeah, okay. Interesting. I'm trying to think. So crossbows would be ideal. Now, I have a question. Can people set up traps, like zombie traps? Put a lot of noise. Take something from one location and deposit it in a completely different location that's not their home. So, for instance, if they find a warehouse on the map, right? They take, I don't know, noisemakers from the local party store and deposit it in the warehouse. That warehouse now has a crap ton of noisemakers attracting zombies. So the zombies in that area aren't as powerful or what have you.
That would be a pretty cool feature. At the moment, we don't really have anything like that. But
Food for
really
thought.
like the idea of persistent items.
Yeah.
So because the idea of you dropping your backpack, it's sort of like geocaching. I mean, you're leaving. It's like virtual geocaching, I guess, because you're leaving items in a location, even if they're virtual.
And it's the same technology for all three of these things. If you've got it working for the backpacks, you can have it working for, zombies. You can have it working for items that are picked up one place and dropped another. The items one might get a little bit troublesome because you'd have people trying to find duping exploits on it, though.
Right. But the idea that you could maybe leave a cache somewhere for your friends to find, or there's a password for it that you'd have to tell them.
Yeah, that's a great idea. You could leave little notes too, because it's just a text field for the item. Right. Yeah.
So that's something that we've been thinking about as well. So leave lock boxes maybe where people could store stuff if they want to share the virtual items with their friends.
Mm-hmm. So if you all work together and you all play, you hide a lockbox at your office, and you can put communal objects in the lockbox.
Right, and you just maybe just have to tell the person the password in real life. So.
Yeah. Oh, Jeff, Merrick at Dojo. You guys have such fun ideas.
Yeah. We've had a lot of fun working on it and messing around with the different ideas for it because it's fun stuff to think about, which obviously you guys
We do plenty.
Yeah,
of.
we spend way too much time thinking about zombies.
It's a
But
weekly thing.
we actually happen to be developing a game in the background as well. So this sort of
not
thinking
not
is
zombies.
no,
unfortunately,
not zombie
but
related. Actually, for the Ouya game console that'll be coming out this spring.
yep.
And yeah, so our heads have been right in that gameplay development thing for a while now too. And it's always fun to sit in a group and sort of hash out ideas for what would be the funnest way to solve.
This would be epic.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I am definitely looking forward to that game then.
So we got a couple minutes left here, and there's a couple of questions that we like to ask every guest.
Yes, these are the real ZombieTech podcast questions. So the top 3 tools you would bring to a zombie apocalypse bunker in the middle of Kansas. Just kidding. Wherever it may be in,
Any tools at all? Weapons?
Any tools at all. Any 3. Money is not an option. Not a concern.
Oh man.
Last week, we had a NASA engineer on.
Yeah.
He worked on the Apollo manned flight vehicles, and his first item was to take the laser cannon off of Curiosity and use it to zap zombies and analyze their molecular content so he could formulate a cure.
Right.
So, this is the sort of caliber of tool we're talking about here.
And yeah.
I think the bar has been set pretty high there.
Although some have brought like hammers and soldering irons.
Yeah,
so I mean,
with duct tape on the barrel.
I think
just in
Cheetos
case.
was one.
She was awesome.
Yeah. So
Well, let's see. I guess the important things are you have to fortify your defense. So, I guess something to build up the defenses around where I am with. So, I mean, maybe something like a bulldozer. I mean, it would run out.
nice.
That's a new one.
But,
I'm gonna ride around a zombie apocalypse in a bulldozer.
in a bulldozer.
Wait, wasn't like Shaun of the Dead or wasn't there that one movie where like all those zombies got like screwed up?
I think that was
You
an
know what I'm
armored personnel carrier, but yeah, similar concept.
You know what I'm talking about? It was like a bulldozer thing in the front yard of some suburban house. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
So, I mean, actually, that a bulldozer could be, you can kill zombies with it, and you can also dig a trench around your
Excellent.
location. So that would be good.
Moats.
To keep them out.
Absolutely.
I guess the second thing that I get 3 things, right?
Yes, you get 3 things.
Okay, so the second thing would be some sort of like solar panels or
Okay.
an entire. I don't know if this counts as an item, but an entire garden, let's say, of so I could grow my own food.
Sure. Like
So-
hydroponics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Get that on the roof.
Yeah.
Get food going.
Just
and
strap a hydroponic bay to your back.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm defended. I have food. I guess the last thing would be to kill zombies. And I'm really tempted to say a helicopter, just because that would be good for
Ooh.
scouting missions. But-
Yeah, it would be good for a day or two, and then you'd be out of gas.
Right. That's the thing. Is fuel is always
Yeah.
a tough thing.
Willow Brew came up with a nice solution to this one. She went with the dirigible, a blimp.
Oh. Okay, so I'm going to make my third item 2 items, which one is cows.
Cows.
So I can use their manure to generate fuel,
Yeah.
Smart.
and then
Good
I'll
neighbor
use,
style. Yeah.
I'll steal the idea of the dirigible or hot air balloon.
All right. All
Go up,
right.
So
sell
he's
that.
got like 7 things for his list of 3.
Yeah,
I think.
that list grew a bit from the original.
What's 3? What's 4? All right. So we got the bulldozer. We have the hydroponic bay. We have the crap. What was that?
The cows and the dirigible.
The cows, right? And the biofuel,
Right.
and then the blimp.
Right.
Well, you could put all 3 of those in the blimp.
You could do it all in
And,
one. I mean,
I
cow
mean-
farts float, so use that to fill up your, your blimp,
Ah,
and they poop,
methane.
and you can use that to run your turbines
Hydroponics.
to push you around.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a
I see.
it's a cow bowel system floating.
Jesus Christ. Okay, all right. And then a book you would bring to your zombie apocalypse bunker.
And I'm gonna follow him
Cow
around because he
bowels?
doesn't have any water to drink because he forgot that. So once he
No,
croaks,
he's got a hydroponic system.
well, yeah, but if he drinks that water, he would die from all of the
Just kill the
the
cows.
nutrients and stuff. Yeah,
That
it would be really
yeah.
bad for you to drink that
It's
water.
okay. We have water filters. That's all right.
Yeah.
Well, cow bowels. Oh my gosh. That's about as ridiculous as I've heard. Okay, so book you would bring to the zombie apocalypse bunker. And it can be a funny one, it can be a useful one, I mean, whichever.
I mean, the obvious choice would be the zombie apocalypse survival guide.
Of course.
But I mean, you don't know how practical that will be.
True.
I mean, there's different. I mean, it might be completely different from everything outlined there.
True.
So maybe a more general survival guide would be better because actually I would probably be very, very bad at survival. Definitely need a guide that I could read.
I don't know, man. You're the Map of the Dead creator. You're kind of a big deal here.
Well, I guess making a map and actually surviving might be difficult for me. So
Gotcha. Well, we'll send you the coordinates to the zombie apocalypse bunker. You
Okay.
bring your cow bowel blimp.
And then you can do some
Well,
cartography when you get here.
We'll have a party.
Yeah.
We'll have a party.
sounds like a great time.
So we mentioned the website here for Map of the Dead and the teaser page for the
For the
upcoming
game.
game. Is there
Mhm.
anything else out there that you'd like people to be aware of?
I guess that's it. You can always go to dojo.com to check out Dojo and the kind of work we've done.
Mm-hmm. And that's DOEJO.
Yep.
.com. So awesome. Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us this week.
Agreed.
Thanks
We
for
had
having me. It
fun.
was
We
a
got
pleasure
to
talking
talk a
with
little
you.
bit of
Yeah.
game design, which is always interesting. Yeah.
The only thing I can say is cowbells.
Yeah. Well,
I'm kind of
that was the
stuck.
whole thing. But
Kinda stuck,
well,
sorry.
Addie's been excited to do this interview all week.
Oh
She-
my gosh, Map of the Dead creator? Are you kidding me?
I keep going in her office to check out what she's doing to make sure she's like working, and she's not. She's surfing around
Searching.
on the Map of the Dead.
Dude, it's
looking
awesome.
for resources, making plans.
Just saying.
All right, well, that's it for us for this week. You can find this show every Thursday evening at ZombieTech.tv, or you can just use the RSS feed there to automatically have it download via iTunes or your phone. Not only is it good for playing games like what we've been talking about, it's good for listening to podcasts in your car on the way to work.
Yes.
Yep. So there's a couple ways to do it. You can also just push play right there on the webpage whenever you get there. It's real easy to use. Well, until then, that's it for us. We'll be back next week.
Ciao.
Bye.